Good afternoon to all the respected participants and our eminent speakers. We are grateful to have the presence of Secretary, Department Environment and Climate Change, Government of Goa, Shri Arun Kumar Mishra, IS Sir. We are also blessed with the presence of Shri Johnson Fernandez, Director of Environment Department and Climate Change, Government of Goa. We have with here our supporting partners, GIM and CASA. I welcome you, sir, Ajit sir, and Divya ma'am. I request now Dr. Ajit Parulekar, sir, Director, Goa Institute of Management, who will address us on the role of education institution in achieving sustainable development.
Yes, I will.
Dr. Ajit Parulekar is an accomplished academician and renowned for his extensive experience in both the corporate and academic realms. Currently serving as the director of prestigious Goa Institute of Management and has played a pivotal role in shaping the institutions. Dr. Ajit is also part of prestigious corporations and on part of government departments and international organizations as well, and many more. We welcome you, sir. And now I request Dr. Sir to please address the audience. I want us to address on the role of education institution in achieving sustainable development.
Sure. Thank you, Darshana. My pleasure to be here. Let me just take off from where, the last couple of points that, Mangarish Bab made, saying the role of people is essential. And, if you're saying the role of people is essential when you're looking at ESG or sustainability as a whole, it automatically means that, there's a role for, it automatically means there's a role for education, right? And there's a role for education because when you have an educated populace, they are much better equipped to address environmental challenges, to take care of things like, social sustainability, diversity, inclusion, poverty reduction, and variety of things on both, on all three E, S, and G. And therefore, the fact that without people, it's not possible, to be successful in sustainable development automatically brings focus onto the role that academic institutions will have. Can you hear me? Because I can suddenly see that everyone's cameras are off. So I'm just hoping it's not because of...
Yes, I'm there, sir. I'm there. I have been listening. Yeah.
Super. Yeah, wonderful.
I don't know, suddenly my gets off, but I'm there. I'm listening to you, sir.
Sure. So when we are looking at, if you're looking at role therefore in academic institutions, before I talk about that, let me just quickly take about, on sustainability, we usually look at three pillars of sustainability. The three pillars would be, of course, economic efficiency, or from a private sector, it would be profit. The second would be people, and third would be planet or environment. So I'm going to look at the sustainability from all three and not look at it primarily from an ESG lens, where in the ESG, lens may not necessarily look at, economic as being an important part. So one of the things is, let's say, role of academia, it can be at all levels. So let me just start by saying, I run a business school, but whether it's at the level of business school, higher education, doctoral programs, or whether it's at primary education, I think it's important, therefore, to be able to embed sustainability in a lot of things. So one of the challenges that a lot of educational programs, I feel, have is they try to teach sustainability as a separate independent course or an independent program. See, that has, I think, a lot of limited, it has a limited value. When I say it's a limited value, what I mean is, if you really want to talk about sustainability, you have to integrate it across different subjects. So in the school, sustainability has to be integrated in science courses, it has to be integrated in geography, in history. If it's integrated in all of this, then you will find it will truly have a lot of value. Sustainability more so being, extremely complex. We oversimplify it by doing things like, if you replace a plastic bottle by a glass bottle, life seems to be a lot more sustainable. That's not necessarily true. And therefore, when you have it, when you have it linked with science, linked with math, linked with geography, linked with all the other subjects that matter to students. And just like I'm saying that in a school, in an engineering program, you want it to be as part of electrical engineering, you want it to be part of mechanical engineering, civil. In each of these, sustainability which is not integrated there. So if a civil engineer studies one separate subject called sustainability or ESG, they will look at it like you have a moral science class in school. No kid is interested in moral science. It doesn't change their morality in any way. But a civil engineer is interested in studying civil engineering. And therefore, when they're studying civil engineering, if they are studying about materials that are greener materials, if they're understanding there how to look at the economic viability, not only in terms of upfront cost, but also looking at, what will happen in terms of long-term maintenance, the benefits to health, what happens if you use something which has fly ash versus something that has cement versus something that has clay, and look at all the pros and cons of this. Similarly, an electrical engineer, when they find the core electrical engineering, if they are looking at what the roles of different types of renewable energies as well as fossil fuels have, I think then they will be interested. The moment you're putting it as a separate subject, I'm not saying don't have a separate subject at all. It is important sometimes to have a signaling effect because it stands out on the curriculum. But I think, the true difference will be made when it is integrated and not when it is standalone. So one part is academia has a role to play in terms of educating primary school to secondary school to undergraduate to graduate, and of course industry, government. All of us, at the time that when I went to school, nobody talked about sustainability. Right? I wasn't taught, but today it's an important concern. And therefore, for people like me and you who are on this call, when we were in school and college, we probably didn't study some parts of sustainability. And at that point in time, also technology was not advanced in such a way. So, 40 years back, solar, wind energy were not really viable economically. Today they are viable economically, and therefore older folks like us also need to be trained on what is the latest that's happening, what are the changes. Because I find a lot of people who don't understand sustainability well, who are practicing managers doing a fabulous job and maybe in production sales. A lot of them feel that if you're doing something that's good for the environment, you're basically compromising on profit models, which is not true. When I speak to a lot of sustainability officers, not sustainability, chief sustainability officers of organizations, all of them saying is, if you embed it in your strategy right from the start, at that point in time, what happens is you're able to make sure that you build business models that are profitable, yet great for the environment and great for the planet. Right? The next place where academia, of course, will play a role is research, because the role of higher education is to take complex subjects and get into detail, because sustainability, as I said, is not simplistic. It's not just by saying, you get rid of paper cups, get rid of plastic straws and stuff like that. That's not good enough. You have to look at, if you're saying circular economy, you've got to measure at so just simple thing. If you take a plastic bottle versus you take an aluminum can versus you take a glass bottle costs the highest for transportation, right? And then we are burning more fuel. So on one side, you have to balance that with the fact that glass is slightly easier to dispose as compared to plastic, right? And therefore, in terms of a reverse logistics, you'll find glass bottles use more water. And therefore, what happens is you need research to be done to be able to quantify, get sound economic logic behind each of the things that happen in sustainability. Just for example, I'll say, what we feel, if you have to, let's say on diversity, equity, inclusion, most people feel that if you have to employ somebody who has some kind of physical disability, your assumption is you're doing good for the world, and the trade-off you're doing is productivity is going to drop slightly, but good for the world is good. The truth is that research shows that people with disabilities are far more productive than people without disabilities, as long as the work environment conditions allow them to function optimally. And if the work environment is not made for them so that they take tons of time to move from one place to another, then their productivity is not there. But if you take care of those hygiene conditions, they're actually more productive, because they understand, you have this stay hungry, stay foolish applies to them too. They see opportunity is not very easy, and therefore they're extremely diligent. There's a lot of research around it. But most of us would think, when you're getting them into the workforce, most of us will think we're doing good to society, but you're giving up some productivity and profitability and economic viability, which is not true. And therefore, I find academia needs to do more research in this and popularize it. Don't just write research papers, but take it to policymakers, take it to industry, take it to CHROs, take it to CEOs and tell them, look, this is what the evidence says in a manner that makes sense to them. So that's the third point I thought I'll talk about. Fourth is we have to demonstrate. So we've got to demonstrate through our campus management that our campus becomes a model community for sustainable development. So I can say for the Goa Institute of Management, those of you who haven't visited us, please come and visit us. But when you're coming to visit us, please make a prior appointment so that we can curate a nice experience for you. On our campus today, we have 745 kilowatt solar power generation. Around 45% of our total power that we consume is solar. We did this at zero investment. We got somebody else, we showed them a business case, they invested, and with a zero investment, we save around 48 lakhs a year on our power. On top of it, we do good for the world, and it's beneficial for people because emissions are relatively lesser. And we talk about this to everybody. Similarly, on water, we do a huge number of different measures for water conservation, and we document. So I have metrics on all of this for all the years. On all the waste that we generate, we know how much we generate of different types. We segregate it 8 ways for dry waste. All the wet waste gets treated on campus. And for the last, for waste, I think for the last 3 or 4 years, we would be having daily waste generation figures, including how much of it goes for what kind of recycling, how much goes to the GWMC plant, all of those details that are available with us. So water, waste, as well as energy, we do significant work here. We on same with diversity, equity, and inclusion. We document everything that we do on this. We have several different kinds of policies that support this. So what we feel is even school students, undergraduate students coming here to campus and spending half a day where we can take them through all of this, make a presentation, show them how all of this works. Even if a small percentage of these get, of course, we do that to the 1,200 students that we have on campus. All of these are likely to become, many of them will become leaders of society and industry tomorrow. So we think we have a big influence there. If they go to, even 10% of them go to their companies and bring in some of these practices, imagine the kind of impact that you can have on, on our country. Last part is community engagement and leadership. Education institutions, especially higher education institutions in India, getting a higher education is a privilege. Not everybody gets access to it. Luckily, NEP is envisioning, not luckily, it's good that NEP is envisioning that we'll have at least a doubling of gross enrollment ratio. But what I do feel is the privilege who get this opportunity have to make sure that we are able to kind of benefit everybody and not just themselves. They will benefit themselves, of course, and therefore running community engagement and leadership programs. So educational institutions can influence their wider community. So I know that GIM, for example, runs a program in Goa called Give Goa. What we mean is it's our social contribution to Goa. Every year, every student gives 20 full days a year, and 600 students do this, which means 12,000 man days per year are given by GIM students. We've been doing this for the last 13 years. Average it around 10,000 multiplied by 13 years. You can just see, that's coming to a huge number, and 130,000 man days given to different kind of NGOs, government departments, corporate CSR programs in areas varying from, agriculture to, mental well-being to geriatric care to school education to variety of different kind of causes, working with, so many different organizations. That I thought, my 10 minutes are already up. I can see Darshana is kind of, looking at me so she can move it forward. Those are the things that I had to say. If you have any questions, please feel free to put in the chat box. I can reply back. Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you, sir. I myself have witnessed a lot of.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Darshana.
Yeah, so we thank you for your special address, and I myself have witnessed a lot of initiative which GIM has taken and are constantly taking and setting an example for the other institution as well to adopt the same sustainable and environment friendly practices. We thank you, sir, for your presence and your time. And I think our chairman, sir, Mangiri, sir, wants to say something. So you can say now.
One of the most important factors with GIM is that students going to the villages and imparting this knowledge to the villagers, to the senior citizens, to the NGOs. I have personally seen this and I have accompanied them in one or two villages also, which is definitely compliment to you. And sir, you are really doing a great work in this direction. Thank you very much for your participation.
So, thank you, sir, once again. We have with us, as we have said, that we are honored to have the presence of Sri Johnson Fernandes, sir, who is the Director of Department of Environment and Climate Change, Government of Goa. John, sir, is also holding the charges as Director in the Directorate of Settlement and Land Records, Government of Goa. So, we are thankful for your presence. And we want you to share your perspectives to all our audience who has joined not only from Goa, across India, some from the western states, more people have joined. So I want you to address the audience and share your insights.
Good afternoon, dear participants and esteemed guests on this video conference. It is with profound sense of duty and dedication that I address you today on this occasion, convened under the auspice of ASSOCHAM Goa State Development Council. I extend my deeper gratitude to the organizers for providing this invaluable platform to engage in dialogue and action towards a sustainable future. In our pursuit of progress, we often find ourselves at crossroads where the imperative of sustainable development intersects with the demands of economic growth and societal well-being. As custodian of our environment and stewards of our collective future, it falls upon us to navigate these intersections with prudence, foresight, and unwavering resolve. The challenges before us are manifold and multifaceted. Climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, and poverty are not isolated issues, but interconnected manifestations of our unsustainable practices and unchecked consumption. The urgency of addressing these challenges cannot be overstated, for they pose an existential threat to humanity and the planet we call home. As Director of the Department of Environment and Climate Change, Government of Goa, I am proud to affirm our steadfast commitment to confront these challenges head-on. Through a multi-pronged approach that encompasses policy innovation, community engagement, and strategic partnerships, we are spearheading initiatives aimed at mitigating the impacts of climate change, safeguarding our natural resources, and fostering sustainable development. Today, I stand before you not only as a representative of the government, but as a fervent advocate for change, a change that transcends bureaucratic confines and political affiliations. It is a change that demands collective action and unwavering determination from each and every one of us. I am heartened by the collaborative spirit exemplified by initiatives such as this knowledge series organized by ASSOCHAM. By bringing together stakeholders from diverse backgrounds and sectors, we amplify our collective impact and pave the way for innovative solutions to emerge. As we embark on this journey towards sustainability, let us heed the lessons of the past, draw inspiration from the present, and envision a future where harmony between humanity and nature is not only possible but imperative. In closing, I extend my deepest gratitude to all participants for your unwavering commitment to this noble cause. Together, let us rise to the challenges before us, armed with the conviction that our actions today will shape the world of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for guiding us with your valuable insights. and we are honored to have your presence. Now, I request Shri Arun Kumar Mishra, IS Secretary, Department of Environment and Climate Change, Government of Goa, to please address the audience. Sir is also holding the charges as a Secretary of the Department Health, Agriculture, and Women and Child Development, Government of Goa. Sir, I request you to please address the audience, and we are very thankful for your presence.
On my personal behalf, I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Darshana, for giving this platform. Dear Sri Mangru Sahab, my friend Johnson Sahab, Sagar Salgaonkar Sahab and his team, I congratulate SOCHM for doing this work. In simplifying ESG virtual knowledge series on virtual knowledge series. Since the ESG concept is quite new, started in 2004, I would like to first of all demystify this ESG concept so that we can move on the sustainability related with ESG. If we define what is ESG, we can say that it is a set of aspects including environmental issues, social issues, and corporate governance that can be considered in investing. So this is a new formula developed for investing pattern. What we can say that this is the responsible investing, or in more proactive cases, impact investing. This term first came to prominence in 2004 report titled Who Care Wins, which was a joint initiative of financial institutions at the invitation of the United Nations. By 2021, the ESG movement has grown from a UN corporate social responsibility. Here, the important point is that this movement moved from the corporate social responsibility to ESG into a global phenomena representing more than $30 trillion asset under management. So we can say that what are the important factors which has driven from the corporate social responsibility to ESG. It is a newer concept, and while investing in anything, because if you go back in 1960s, 70s, when this is laissez-faire and Friedman type of thinking was there were thought that every investment should be done in the manner that it should be return prone. The ESG concept has been developed to counter that argument so that we can investment for a brighter future with sustainable development goals. We have already discussed so many things about the sustainable development goals. What is the responsible investing? Responsible investing through ESG has known a golden age, globally driven by COP21 or Paris Agreement and the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. So it got the prominence by COP21 and Sustainable Development Goals also. ESG factors and rating took a well-established place in finance realm. Indeed, the 21 ESG assets market value was over $18.4 trillion worth of investment with a projected growth of 12.9 till 2026. So we are seeing that there is a great momentum done by the ESG. The European Union has a leading position in the sustainable fund market with 84% of global assets in this sector. Additionally, it stands as the most advanced and diversified market for ESG investment. In comparison, the US, following a distance, accounted for 11% of these global sustainable fund assets by September 23. So while discussing, there are so many people from the academia and other students also. We must go through why the funding pattern is quite different in the two continents. The US or the American continent has a different funding pattern, and the European Union or the Europe has a different funding pattern. And what is their impact on the Afro-Asian countries and the Latin American countries and sub-Saharan countries? I'm talking about these big names because these concepts have been developed in America, followed by the Europe, and now discussed by us. So we should be very careful and prudent while implementing these theorems in our funding patterns or investing patterns. We should be more careful that greenwashing is also an element we noticed in corporate social responsibility funding pattern. So in this pattern, amid allegation of greenwashing and stricter regulation, there is a notable decrease in funds incorporating ESG related into their names. An increasing number of funds in the United States are removing ESG related terms from their names, a trend not observed in the Europe. So here is a critical takeaway from this decrease in funding pattern in US, that by the name of greenwashing, a lot of companies are diverting their funds. So in the US, this ESG word has been removed. So while moving towards introducing ESG and moving ahead with ESG, we should be careful that our companies or industrial sector should not go through with the greenwashing pattern or divert their funds for not benefit of the purposes which it is meant for. Several studies have shown that sustainable investments are on the rise. The University of Cambridge defines sustainable investments as it involves constructing a portfolio by selecting assets deemed to be sustainable or capable of enduring over a long term. It can also be seen as a resolute approach that excludes assets perceived as detrimental to long-term environmental and social sustainability. So these are the very long-term points. Basically, here we are gathered to just discuss that how we can use this new term and how we can use for a long-term sustainable development goals for which we are striving for. For this purpose, as we discussed, Manguri Saab has also discussed, we should work at the ground level and ensure that in Goa, we can do what we can do. The ESG framework adopted by industries help to identify, organize, analyze priorities and guide decision on various business risks. This risk must be addressed accordingly, or if under addressed, the companies can later face cost. But we have just discussed about that. Our state, being a popular tourist destination on the western coast of India, faces several environmental issues due to rapid urbanization, industrialization, and tourism. So while working on this ESG and funding patterns and investment pattern, we should be very careful that whether these investments are proactive, whether these are beneficiary for our long-term perspective, and whether they are inculcating the long-term sustainable goals. So I have, in best of my knowledge as of now, I have raised some points which is related to this topic. Open to House to discuss upon it and add on value addition plus material addition. And I am thankful to the forum that they invited me. Thank you. I am concluding here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for guiding us and minute insights which you have shared. We will surely work as per your guidance, and we are thankful for your presence here. Now, I would like Dr. Sagar Salgaonkar, sir, co-chairman, to please provide closing remarks at this inaugural session.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, first of all, I would like to extend a very warm greeting to all the respected eminent speakers, starting with the chairman of Association Goa Council, Shri Mangirish Paraikar, Dr. Ajit Porulekar, or should I say Professor Ajit sir, because I think when I was in GIM for my weekend corporate program, he was my teacher. He taught me a lot of subjects. So very nice to see you, Ajit sir. Dr. Divya Singhal, chairperson of CSSA, Center of Social Sensitivity and Actions. Sri Johnson Fernandez, Director, Department of Environment and Climate Change, Government of Goa. And a very special guest, Sri Arun Kumar Mishra, IAS Secretary, Department of Environment and Climate Change, Government of Goa. Very few interactions I have had personally with Sri Arun Kumar Mishra ji. And whenever I met him, I always found him to be very dynamic and full of thoughts and, very eager to implement a lot of change. And I think SOCHM would really like to work very closely with the Department of Environment and make very positive impact on the way the entire environment concept is looked at, and a lot of sessions can also be jointly organized with the government of Goa with SOCHM. Coming to the main topic of the today's discussion, that is demystifying sustainability and simplifying ESG. I think we are going to have two episodes. Today, of course, is one, and then there would be one which would be held on 26th April at the same time, wherein there would be a lot of sessions would be held on ESG, and a lot of eminent speakers would be speaking also on climate change. Today, we are mainly focusing on SDGs. So as far as environment is concerned, I think, as they say, very proverbially, we are what we eat. And ultimately, what we eat comes from the farms, the fields, and the fields ultimately, how the fields are, how the farms are absolutely dependent on the environment. So at the end of the day, what we are ultimately are going to be dependent on our environment. For the benefit of a large audience which has joined us today for this program, it is a responsibility of each and every person, an individual, how that individual behaves in his surroundings, which will ultimately have a positive or negative impact on the environment. It is, I think, it is as Professor Ajit said. If we have these subjects or separate subject, which is on sustainability or on ESG or on environment change, it would be more or less akin to having a moral science lecture in our schools, where student. I remember when we had moral science in our school, I normally attended it just to have a break from the normal study pattern, and so that we could you talk to our friends and have a good time in that class. That was the sole purpose of having a moral science class. So that is how it would be looked at, as Professor Ajit rightly said. So I think it is the way in which we adopt these practices, or supposing we are having this curriculum in the schools, how we incorporate these environmental subjects within the curriculum. That would make a very big impact. So in schools, in colleges, how a simple behavior like not using, say, plastic, or disposal of, if at all you how disposal of plastics, caring for the environment, planting of trees as far as possible, sustainable behavior on each and every aspect of our life is what would make ultimately an impact on how people look and can change the environment positively. Similarly, in real estate sector, I'm saying because I'm coming from a real estate sector. So as far as the fly ash bricks, also as far as the uh, different mechanisms in which waste, dry and wet waste, which is generated in real estate projects, is dealt with safely, is dealt with proper, conscious attention being given to environment. That will make an impact a lot in terms of how the climate change happens in future. And I think that is the burning issue today, with the rapid industrialization which already happened, and in the next 5 to 10 years, I think we are looking at a huge spurt in development across the globe. At the same time, with the huge climate changes which are happening, and the crisis that we are facing, I think it is high time that we look at each individual rather than focusing on the wide picture and depending on the governments and blaming the governments and blaming the countries. And I think it is binding on each and every person today to see how he or she can positively make a change in by changing their behavioral patterns and making a positive impact on the environment. So having said this, I think these large attendance is required. I think more and more people attend our two sessions, it will make a huge impact in the way the people also perceive how they behave on day-to-day life, so that the environment can be positively impacted. So once again, on behalf of SOCHM, I would like to thank all the speakers. for their thoughts. I hope that we've had a very interactive session. Thank you for joining us. For all the participants also, thank you for taking the time off to join us. And I hope that this session and the next goes a long way in helping everyone achieve their collectively achieve the environmental goals that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your words full of gratitude. Now, let us start with our first session, a knowledge session that will be taken by Dr. Divya Singhal. Ma'am will be focusing more on sustainable development goals, SDGs. Dr. Divya is the chairperson of GIM CASA, Center for Sustainable Social Sensitivity and Actions. Dr. Divya is a PhD in economics and professor in general management, public policy, sustainability, and research methods at GIM. She has received many recognitions such as Impact Scholar Award from CBOS University of Bath in 2022, and she also has published many journals. So, ma'am, I welcome you and please guide us and our participants with the special address on SDGs. We would also like to put up some few questions which has come to me at the end of your session.
Sorry, I was just trying to unmute. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to me, and I hope my slides are visible. The episode 1 is focusing on sustainable development goals. And what I'm going to do first, I'm going to share what will be the flow of my presentation. I will be talking about the context. Actually, most of the context is set by the earlier speakers, so I will not spend much time, probably 30 to 50 seconds on that. And then I will talk about the SDGs, what are they, the genesis, and of course, the brief introduction. What are some of the examples? And of course, many of us are aware of about SDGs. We know that there are 17 SDGs, but maybe how those SDGs are measured is what I will try to make all of us sort of understand. And of course, I will invite questions throughout my presentation. And then I will try to share where we are as a country. And then maybe the roles of individual, maybe the context of as a facilitator, I belong from, to Goa Institute of Management, and then collectively seeing how we can move forward. Now, when we talk about the context, I think most of the context has been said by when Professor Ajit started sharing about that sustainability is not just the environmental he spoke about, it's a very strong 3 pillars. And if we talk about the SDGs, actually the whole discussion around SDGs, if I want to put things into perspective, the sustainable development discussion started in somewhere in 1980s. And especially in 1982, there was a World Commission, on Environment and Development. And then you can see on the screen that in 1987, this Brundtland Commission reports, which came, and that actually highlighted the sustainable development concept. Then there was another United Nations conference on sustainable development, which was in 2012. Actually, that paved the way for SDGs, and that conference is also known as the Rio +20. And today what we see SDGs are, I would say, that particular conference was a stepping stone or kind of a launch pad for that. Now, as I see the sustainable development, you can see on the screen also left-hand side, it's not just one aspect of environment. It has a very strong, the social aspect where we are trying to nurture our community. And of course, this has a very, very strong, aspect of economic profitability also. Now, when we are talking about the SDGs, and we know that the SDGs, this idea of a better world, where in 2015, the world leaders, they agreed to the 17 goals for a better world by 2030. And these SDG goals, there are 17 goals, which I'm going to present in next few slides. And each of the goal has certain targets. So 17 goals, and there are 169 targets. And these SDGs are popularly also known as global goals. And they were actually built on the lessons we learned from the MDGs. Some of you may recall there was something called, Millennium Development Goals. So this SDGs were based on whatever we had the lessons, the right or wrong, positives and negatives. And these goals were adopted by 193 member countries of the United Nations. And there was a historic summit which was held in New York specifically on 25th of September in 2015. These SDGs came into force on 1st of January 2016. And what are these SDGs? We talked about in the earlier slide about the sustainable development, which is economic, social, and of course the environmental aspect, or rather I would say that people, planet, and profit taking care. So these SDGs are really important. They are expected to stimulate the sustainable development. So the idea of sustainable development is comprehensive, and the SDGs are way to actually, sort of contribute in terms of ending the poverty and hunger, contributing in terms of providing healthy lives to people, providing quality education to people, achieving gender equality, providing maybe the clean energy, promoting sustainable economic growth, and of course, reducing inequality. And of course, the principle behind SDG is no one should be left behind. And these SDGs are also known as the 2030 Agenda. And why 2030 Agenda? Because the goals were set in 2015, and the targets which were set, they said that we will try to achieve in 2030. So this is why this is also known as the Agenda 2030. Now, these SDGs, first of all, it was a result of a 3-year-long transparent participatory process, which included multi-stakeholders. And because there are stakeholders from, of course, the government was there, of course, the member nations were there, of course, but other than that, that industry presence was there, civil society was there, academia presence was there. So there were multi-stakeholder perspective was taken, and that is why these SDGs, first of all, they are interconnected, and they are people-centered and planet-sensitive and universal in nature. If you compare with MDGs were focusing on a particular kind of nations, whereas SDGs are applicable to whether you are a developed nation, whether you are a developing nation, or whether you are just have begun your journey. So that's something which is a good part about the SDGs. Many of you know the 17 SDGs, but let's just quickly have a look at these SDGs. So number 1 talked about the ending poverty in all forms everywhere. Now, second, you see that it is written zero hunger, but the goal says ending hunger, achieving food security, and improved nutrition and promoting sustainable agriculture. Similarly, the SDG 3 talks about the good health and well-being. 4 is all about the education, whereas 5 talks about how you achieve the gender equality and empower all women and girls. 6 is talking about the environmental. And as I am speaking, try to see when we spoke about those 3 different areas where we said that there is a social dimension, there is an economic dimension or prosperity dimension, and there is a dimension of planet or environment. So I'm sure that you will be able to see that there are SDGs which can be grouped and put into that planet kind of composition, like SDG 6, SDG 7, SDG 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. These are more of an environmental related or planet related SDGs. When we talk about the social SDGs, you can see, the social SDGs like, hunger, health, education, equality, those kind of SDGs are on the social aspect. And then there are SDGs like SDG 8, 9, which are talking about more from the economic perspective, decent work and economic growth. And of course, there is a SDG on peace, justice, and strong institution and partnership for goal, because many of these SDGs are interlinked. So when we say that, as let's say a nation, I am taking this kind of commitment that we are going to focus on SDG 5, which is gender equality. You can't achieve gender equality if there is a poverty, if the health conditions are not there, if education is not there. So these SDGs are interlinked. That also we need to understand. Now, when we talk about the best part about these SDGs, so 3 Ps we have just spoken about, and these 3 Ps what we have spoken about are people, planet, and of course the profit. But not only just the people, planet, and profit. There are 2 more SDGs, 2 more Ps, which I want to introduce you to. Is they are talking about the peace and partnership. They have come very strongly when we are talking about the SDGs. So I hope that screen is again visible. There was some glitch. Now these 5 Ps, what I've talked about, the people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership, all the developmental issues what we have talked about, they can be actually clubbed under or grouped under these 5 categories. And of course, these categorization is also linked largely to the interconnectedness. And why I'm emphasizing on interconnectedness? Because this leads to the holistic view of challenges. And of course, we can then devise the holistic intervention. So system thinking approach in achieving SDGs becomes very important. Like I mentioned, you will not be able to achieve gender equality if the health and worsen, if the climate is not working in your now, just a little bit understanding how these, as I mentioned, there are 17 goals, and then there are 169 targets. So these 17 goals, as you saw in the previous screen, these are set and developed by, of course, UN with the consultation. They are rigid. Rigid means you can't change. You can't say that SDG 1 in India, we will call it as gender equality. They're fixed. Targets are also fixed. But what we can do at the country level and the regional level, the indicators can be designed at the country level. And I will give you some examples because it helps in measuring the level of achievement. So just quickly talking about how it is done. So I will give you 2 examples, and one quick example is on health. Like SDG 3 talks about the good health and well-being. Now, when we talk about the good health and well-being, what this SDG says that ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all at all ages. Now, that's the goal, which is fixed. Now, there are targets. Now, what are different targets? So under SDG 3, these are on my screen. You can see there are multiple targets under SDG 3. For example, the first target under SDG 3 is reducing maternal mortality. Or if you see that there is a target 3.8, which says achieving universal health coverage. Now, to each of these further broken down into multiple indicators. So again, one target can have multiple indicators at the UN level also. There are some agreed indicators, but because the country contexts are different, their challenges are different, their priorities are different, so indicators can be designed in some way. So this is just to give you an idea how those 17 SDGs and 169 targets. Now, let's quickly understand the measuring part. And for the measuring part, what I have done, I have taken another example of SDG 12. And why I have taken SDG 12, because Arun sir also, Johnson sir also, they spoke about the how it is important for us to take actions. And Professor Ajit also emphasized how the educational institution can play a role. So of course, we know that today there are unsustainable patterns of consumption and production, which are really a root cause of whatever the crisis is happening, whether it's a biodiversity loss, whether it's a pollution, or whether it's a climate change. So SDG 12, if you see what SDG 12 says that it's ensuring sustainable consumption and production patterns. Now, UN further explains what it is all about. It is about how do we use resources, how do we live our life, so sustainable lifestyle, sustainable infrastructure, which helps us achieve the development and, of course, reduce the future economic, environmental, and social cost. And this will definitely strengthen the economic competitiveness and reduce poverty. Now, as I mentioned, SDG 12 is the goal, and then there are some targets under each, because there are total 169 targets. Now, as you saw in SDG 3, there were multiple targets. In SDG 12 also, there are 11 different targets. So, for example, I have highlighted 2 targets just to give you further examples how things are measured. So, one of the SDG 12 target is half global per capita food waste, because the whole idea is to achieve responsible consumption and production. And then I will also give you the example of 12.6. Now let's see 12.3 when the target says that you can achieve SDG 12 by doing this. So these 11 are the targets that all member nations which are agreed. They have to have a responsible management of chemicals and waste. They have to substantially reduce their waste generation. They have to encourage companies to adopt sustainable practices and sustainable reporting. So this target 12.3, which is about the bringing the global per capita food waste to half. Now, this is measured, the indicator. So this is a target. Now, this is measured through a global food loss index. And of course, as I mentioned, there are some agreed at the UN level. There are some agreed indicators, but the country context also can be different. So there are multiple different indicators can be given. Towards the right-hand side, I have shared a newspaper clipping which says that food available for consumption is 5.3 billion tons, and the food waste, 17% of the food waste, available food is wasted. And if you see the country-wise annual per capita food wastage at the household, the 50% of 50 kg food per capita per year is getting wasted in India, and as you can see, the other countries also. So, and also it is interesting to see, or rather alarming to see, that 61% of the generated waste comes from household. Now, when we are talking about that SDG 12 is responsible consumption and production, now we know that the global food wastage, if we bring them to half, that's one way we are going to contribute to SDG 12. And we see what is the current status of this. So that's something, that's how the SDGs are measured. Another example I can give you is SDG 12.6, which talks about encouraging companies to adopt sustainable practices and sustainability reporting. Because they say that, if the companies are reporting and adopting sustainability practices, that's a one way of ensuring that there is a responsible production pattern. Now, what is the indicator here? Indicator for this 12.6, so 12.6.1, which is the indicator, is the number of companies, how many companies are actually publishing their sustainability report. Now, there are a lot of different databases which are available, fantastic databases which talks about where we are. So if you see how many companies were publishing the sustainability report with the minimum and meeting the minimum requirement in 2020, the numbers are given, and this is taken from Our World in Data. So that's how the SDGs are measured. Another example, but I'm not going to, I'm going to skip in the interest of time. Now, where we are as a country, where we are, of course, the good news is we are not doing bad, we are doing good. So the recently, the report which was published on SDG progress, we scored 63.45. So it is actually percentage, because the score comes out of 100. So as I mentioned, each of these targets, then indicators, so each indicator is measured on, and then sums up into 100. So the score 63.45 means that out of 100, that's our progress. And as you can see, the this dashboard, there are fantastic dashboard, and dashboard uses the color coding. And we can see that there are many states in India, which you can see in green, which means there are front runner. They have scored Within this country, they have different states have scored between 65 to 99 score, and that is why they are front runner, and other states are performing. So we are very happy that the progress is going good. This is a overall picture. Of course, I'll share the dashboard link also so that participants can browse. This, what I'm presenting, is from the report which was released very recently. Of course, it's a Sustainable Development Report 2023, but it was released in 2024. And every year they come out with this. So as you can see, of course, it's like a lighting system. So green means the arrows in green means the SDGs are progressing on track, and then the on track and something maybe decreasing, stagnating. So as you can see, SDG 12, because we were talking about this. So in SDG 12, when it comes to the global, and this I have not taken the India only. This I have taken the global perspective. So what is the progress is happening? Again, Niti Aayog, because that's the nodal agency in India for the SDGs. So Niti Aayog also has its own dashboard, and Niti Aayog publishes how we are faring on each of these SDGs. So as you can see, if you want to go and see, let's say, we were discussing about the SDG 12. So from the 2019, we scored 55, and in 2020, we scored 74. So the things were improved. And when it comes to, let's say, SDG 5, the concern is still there because we are still aspirant. The overall score within our country is still not reached the 50%. So that's how the SDGs are measured. Now, very quickly, the role we can play. Everyone, because it's not just the government sort of agenda to fulfill or to achieve or to contribute to SDGs, all of us, we can integrate these SDGs into our policy. So if we have to cut down the food waste, the government alone can't do. We have to start from our homes, because 61% is coming from households. Similarly, other SDGs also we can contribute. We can engage communities and local stakeholders for SDG implementation. Of course, lot can be done. A minute left. So what in the given time, so what I can say that individually, collectively, of course, there is a greater role we can play, but individually, we can, first of all, we can be aware, we can work on collaboration, as I mentioned, because there are interlinked SDGs, we need to have that system thinking approach. We need to see the things holistically and work with a circularity mindset. Maybe start small, whatever we want to do. So start small, contributing, whichever SDG we are passionate about, we can contribute to that. So that's all from my side. I'll be more than happy to take questions and engage further in the discussion.
Thank you, ma'am, for your knowledge-based, thought-provoking session. And yes, meanwhile you were addressing this session, I've got a few questions. Some were repetitive, so I have filtered three. I think that will help us and everybody to understand more broadly the concepts. The first questions which was put was youths which are aspiring innovators, creators, builders, and future leaders. It is very sad to observe that they fail to understand about sustainability. I think Professor Ajit had rightfully pointed out this. And the question is here, what role education department can play and how?
So thank you, Darshana ji. First of all, I think Professor Ajit talked about that educational institutions have a role to play, and maybe I will not completely agree with the statement that they don't understand sustainable development. Maybe they are more concerned today. What I see are students, they're more concerned about the way things are happening, maybe the way inequality or maybe polarization. They are aware of these things. Now, how the educational institution can play a role? First of all, of course, as Professor Ajit mentioned, I will borrow his words that standalone courses focusing on sustainability may give a signaling effect, but what we need to do as education institution, we have to we all need to break that siloed approach and have more integrated kind of courses, and of course provide students an opportunity, that kind of experience. So for example, the Give Goa, so immersion kind of things, experiential kind of thing, when they see things, and students, when they are provided with this agency or ownership, I think they do wonders. So the education institution have a huge role to play. Professor Ajit also mentioned you lead by example. So you demonstrate not by teaching or creating awareness, you show them that where your energy is coming. If you are an educational institution, are you still using those single-use plastic, or what are you doing? So students observe. So I think, those are some of the things by which we can actually create that kind of environment, which gives them that, yes, sustainability. And first of all, sustainable development is no longer a choice. It has become a strategic decision today. So that's something which I thought that Professor Ajit has already spoken about, so I'll not emphasize much.
I think our co-chairman has also rightly pointed out, as we have in our high schools a moral science lecture. I think one aspects can be added on sustainability so that the people understand, the students understand. I think the teachers can play a very important role here. That's what we feel. So I think, ma'am, thank you for answering this. There was one more question, which was, I think, on industry and business perspective. It's a simple question, but I think it will have some broader address from you. The question was, what is the relevance of SDGs for business?
Okay, so thank you. Of course, as when we were talking about Darshana ji, these 17 different SDGs, and there were SDGs about the environment aspect, there were SDGs about the social aspect. And if I'll give you one example. So for example, if in your company, the diversity, equity, inclusion practices are not there, you will have high attrition rate. If you have high attrition rate, you will spend more. If you do not have practices which are planet sensitive, you have to spend more on, let's say, if your infrastructure is not designed that way, you have to spend more on the electricity bill. So something, these SDGs are not something which only, so businesses, of course, it's important for businesses to understand the importance of SDGs. Once they are aware that how contributing to SDGs is in their favor, so if they are aware about the benefit they can derive from this and their role in achieving or advancing SDGs, I think they can then do the prioritization. What is the priority area? And further, they can communicate the focus areas and targets. One, of course, they do this, then the further strategies can be integrated and with the existing business model. And I was listening very carefully to Arunji, who was speaking about the ESG, and of course he spoke about the impact investing. A lot of detailed insight were shared about various perspectives. So what companies can do, they can also finally map their achievements, and then they can communicate their commitment through the sustainability report. And let me tell you, the research has clearly demonstrated, if you invest in people, if you invest in planet-friendly policies, it will have a positive impact on your profit. So prosperity will definitely come. So that is why I think SDG, first of all, they help businesses by strengthening the enabling environment and helping companies for maybe the better stakeholder management, better stakeholder engagement, and enhancing the business case for sustainable practices.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, this was a very good answer. And I think most of our industries in Goa are going solar. I mean, they are taking all the initiatives to have and, educate their employees also on certain initiatives. So I think that is good, which is happening in our state. And I hope all the other industries also adopt the same practices for sustainable development. So, ma'am, I would like to also address you one more question. I
Sure.
think I have shortlisted one. I think this is a question where one wants to understand what can I contribute to SDGs myself as a citizen of the state. I think this question is addressed from individual perspective. So as a citizen maybe of the India.
So I think this is a very important question, because sometimes, we think that as an individual, the contributing to SDGs, like one of the target which we saw, how we can halve the food wastage. So it may seem daunting, but there are some tangible ways we can make a difference. First of all, we can be aware about SDGs, and we can educate others about SDGs. So educating, familiarizing ourselves with the SDGs, and then spreading awareness, reduce, reuse, recycle. We can align our actions with SDG 12. We can support the responsible businesses. We can choose to buy from companies. Of course, we need to be very cognizant that there are many companies who are doing greenwashing, SDG washing also. So we need to be very careful while making selections. So we can promote sustainable businesses, ethical labor standards. We can also volunteer wherever maybe the small contribution to contributing to anything, like maybe the climate, maybe the zero hunger. We can be advocates for equality. Our own workspaces, whether there are policies which are gender equal or not, whether they are supporting gender equality or reducing inequalities. We can conserve energy, we can conserve water, we can engage in the community development. Of course, we can promote lifestyle, which is, and Government of India has this LIFE project, which is lifestyle for environment. So we can have that lifestyle for environment, the healthy lifestyle, mental well-being, part of SDG 3. So a lot of things we can do. We can incorporate SDGs into our own work. Not thinking about how my individual action will help. Of course, each, as I mentioned, start small. Each of us can play a huge role in contributing to SDGs. So I think that's very important for all of us to understand.
Yeah, and I think under the LIFE, which was introduced by an honorable Prime Minister, it had specifically focused for 21 days. I think psychologically, why? Because it becomes a habit. So I think everybody should follow for 21 days so that it eventually becomes a habit for everyone. And I think that is how people can, take certain initiatives for sustainability. So I have some questions here. I was reading out more questions. Few have requested, ma'am, for the presentations you have showed for SDG. Email address is also mentioned. So I will share the concerned person, Nanda Majik ji. I want you to share your presentation, ma'am, to me so that I can share them. And another question, last, which I want to read by Krishna Gavas. He says, I think he's a student, and he says, nowadays many lectures and workshops going on in different places on sustainability and biodiversity, but no special syllabus for the same in school level. Is there any plan to start at school level? I think this answer we can get better from education department, but ma'am, being you as a professor, I want you to give some inputs to him so that we together can suggest and guide the government, and together we can work.
No, I think SHM can play an important role in driving that. And as Professor Ajit mentioned, that it is very important to start early. If we are talking about, let's say, LIFE, which is a lifestyle for environment, we need to have that at the younger age, making our kids aware of those things. So very well said that not just the biodiversity, all the discussions, all the aspects, maybe it's about the equality, maybe it's about the diversity, maybe it's about the ethical practices, everything. It has to start early. So, and personally, what I believe that instead of putting, let's say, teaching them about biodiversity, teaching them about things, if we teach them compassion for self, compassion for people, compassion for planet, things will be fine. So at the school level, I would say, don't teach them about SDGs, just teach them about compassion, being compassionate to yourself, to your planet, to other people. That's it.
Yes, ma'am. And I also would like to add, if there are specific institution pertaining to specific sectors, for example, any institute which promotes, which educates the people in health, or if any institute which educates the people in agriculture. So I think these institute can take some of the goals and you target the students for doing something within the campus, or try to build a habit, among the students by not concentrating on all the 17 goals, but at least the goals which are affiliated to that institution. I think that will also, ma'am, help. I think, thank you, ma'am, for your information. And as discussed, we need the presentation because people have shared their email addresses for me to share them the details. So thank you, ma'am. I would like to thank all the participants who have joined here, has made time to join here. There are many researchers, consultants, NGOs, educators, and there are a lot of other stakeholders, industry stakeholders. I would like to also thank Director of Higher Education. Sir has specially sent a email to every institutions representative to join this session. And thank you, ma'am, for this best guidance and your thought-provoking session. I also want to thank GIM CASA for associating with us. A heartfelt gratitude to Shri Arun Mishra, IAS Secretary and Department of Environment and Climate Change, Government of Goa, and Shri Johnson Fernandes, Sir, Director of Environment Department and Climate Change, Government of Goa. In spite of their busy schedule, they have managed to join us online. So I really thank both the sir. And I thank our chairman, co-chairman. I thank Ajit Parulekar sir for taking time and presenting and sharing his perspective on this subject. And we thank you, ma'am. I thank all the audience and participants as well. I think we'll end this session. I also want to inform everyone on 26th, we are having the second episode, which we will be focusing more on the highlight of that session would be ESG and climate change. And as ma'am has guided us today on SDGs, we will be having guidance on ESGs and climate change. So I thank you, everyone, and thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Darshana ji. Once again, I've shared some of the links in the chat that may be helpful for the participants, and I will share my presentation. So let us commit to a global partnership, not just in name, but in action. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am, definitely. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.